let's talk about motivations that can stand behind research projects or give rise to research projects. On the one hand, we have personal motivation, and that of course always plays a role, but shouldn't be the only kind of motivation behind your research study. So it is good to become aware of what phenomena specifically you are interested in and explain to yourself why this is interesting to you yourself personally. However, it's also tremendously important to widen the view and think of why this might be interesting not only to you, but interesting more generally. What can I tell the prospective reader of my report, my thesis, my article, why this is interesting for them or for a wider audience? And the same goes for specific questions that you may have regarding the phenomenon. It's useful to write up a list, and you can check back later if it can be answered based on the literature or not, whether it demands an actual empirical study. So when we go beyond personal motivation, a factor that very often underlies research is a motivating observation. You come up with a guiding idea, what you want to find out based on something you read or hear or see, and wonder, why is that? How come that this happens? You shouldn't think of this as a fixed research topic already. This is still changeable and needs development. Nevertheless, it's good to reflect on why you find a certain motivation odd or surprising. For instance, you may observe being unemployed seems to be a social stigma for the people who are affected by it, and you want to find out how this stigma is created and maintained. So that could be a motivating observation. You see one instance of such stigmatization, or that people talk about this as they talk about a stigma. This can give rise to your topical focus. So you mention the topic that you want to focus on. You reflect on the relevance, imagining why this idea might be important. You reflect on unspoken assumptions and find that your idea in its raw form may be unrealistic to tackle at this level of generality. So you may want to downsize, specialize, and make it a good research problem from that. Questioning such unspoken assumptions can already be a motivation for an entire research project or even a larger research program. And your motivating observation may already hold clues about the preferred methods. Sometimes you already think of this like, oh, you would need to run a survey that asks people about, or if you interviewed people about this, you would probably see this and that, right? Or if you look at the media coverage, you will I imagine this and that happens. So that gives you already a clue what method you think is most useful. And here it also makes sense to reflect why you think this method is best. Maybe you come to the conclusion, no, it's not best, something else is even better. But maybe there's something to your intuition and it makes sense to find out what it is. And finally, we have motivating literature, which may be the starting point or come in later. It's a primary mission when reading literature on your topic. to check if your questions have probably already been answered, but most of the time when they've been answered, they haven't been answered completely, so it still is possible to go deeper or repeat and amend what has been done before. To scan, are there follow-up questions researchers have asked, desiderata, as you also say, that are still there, things we want to find out but haven't yet, that may give you a precise research question or mission objective. Do you, when reading the literature, wonder about something, worry about something, think something that isn't really sound or doesn't really fit? Does it raise any new questions for you, be they methodological or theoretical or phenomenological? But you also look for best practice. So how have key concepts been defined in previous research? What methodologies have been used? Do you want to do the same thing? Or do you want to do something completely different, setting yourself apart from it, making a methodological contribution, uncover a methodological weakness or at least ambiguity? Well, maybe you have thoughts about that while you're reading. And if it's only like, I want to do it the way the others have done it, then at least you know what they've done and can make a choice based on that. The same goes for theories. So which theories have others used? Have they used any theories, or have they just reported empirical findings without sorting them into a theoretical framework? And how is that useful for your study? Can you get to hypotheses just based on these pieces of literature that you've looked at? For finding literature, you need to brainstorm relevant keywords. You should consult literature, existing literature, and find relevant terms and concepts and theories in there. So this can be a multi-stage thing. First you brainstorm some keywords yourself, then you read a little bit, then you realize that there's more terms that you should include in your query, update your query, get new texts, read more, and so on. So you read, you build structure, you specify ideas, you read again, you refine your structure, and so on. And the same goes not only for the literature search query, but also the reading itself. So you usually go back and forth between reading on the one hand and refining your research idea on the other hand, and work towards greater specificity and precision. You need to always work on these texts, take notes, structure them, narrate them to yourself, summarize them, rather than just reading. If you just passively read, you will forget a lot of things, or you won't realize the practical challenges if you're just having a look at them and don't really work on the concepts. So what you see here would be an example of a conceptual map that you build based on literature that you are reading. So you're taking notes, what the different articles look at and what kinds of statements they test or presuppose to be true. Where you say, okay, the cultural repertoire of stereotypes includes stereotypes of unemployed people. The entertainment media draw on these stereotypes because they are popular and well understandable. Thereby they maintain and reinforce them. They help build them over time. This then translates also to news media, which then provide cultural references or use cultural references and draw on stereotypes, which then make it easier for the media users to process the content and thereby stereotypes get transmitted and reinforced. So that would be a conceptual map of this process of stereotype building and reinforcement. You get conceptual definitions from the literature. People may agree or disagree. You may find them convincing or not convincing. So you can be critical, but it's important to be critical against something or to be to know what you agree with or what you build on. You will find ideas about mechanisms behind this. So why do the entertainment media draw on these stereotypes, as I said, but it's also including prototypical methodologies that are being used to investigate these topics, cases that people have studied in the past, for instance, specific ethnic groups that are in which unemployment is studied more than others, or certain genders or certain age groups and so on. And you take a list of these follow-up questions that might be important. Okay. And finally, we have to formulate the research problem based on this bunch of things we can extract from the literature. Sometimes the literature is richer, sometimes it's less rich, but if it's not so rich on the specific phenomenon and the specific contexts that you are studying, just widen the search scope, right? Look for other cases that are in some way similar, other contexts that are similar, other phenomena of, say in this case, of stigmatization. So if there's not much on unemployment, look at racial stigmatization or other kinds of stigmatization that play a role, right? And that have been researched more. And then you can draw to some extent with having in mind that it's a different context or a different topic, but nevertheless, it's a better point of departure than just a blank sheet.